So hello everyone and welcome to the 27th Argos community call. Today we have with us Elli Papadopoulou, Product Manager of Argos, who will present an exercise developed in the context of OSTrails project to help participants better understand how to use Argos. We also welcome Andrew Hoffman, Data Steward and Service Scientist for Research Data Management at the Faculty of Social and Behavioural Sciences at Leiden University, who will share insights on how Argos will be used in the Netherlands. And a few housekeeping notes before we begin. During the presentation, please keep your microphones muted and cameras off. For the Q&A session, please feel free to unmute and turn on your camera if you wish to participate. You're also welcome to submit your questions or thoughts here in the chat or in our shared Google Doc, which will be posted in the chat. And please note that this session is being recorded and transcribed. If you wish to participate in the Q&A but prefer not to be included in the recording, let us know in the chat and we'll ensure your contribution is edited out. And with that, I'll hand it over to Elli to start with the presentation. Elli, the floor is yours.
Here. I didn't move. Thank you so much, Marilee, for the introduction. Nice to see you all. Let me see. 27th. Wow. 27th community call. That's amazing. And it's amazing if you think how we grew, not as a community only, but as a service. It's wow. Yes, so the idea today, as Marilee mentioned, is to clearly show how Argos can be used, the duality in which Argos can be used, let's say. Then focusing more on the integrations parts. We have prepared some steps that you can feel free to follow if this is something that you would like to do. Also, and additionally, we have the pleasure to have with us Andrew. He should be here somewhere. Yes, I see him. To share his view. He has done a very great work of, talking to different universities in the Netherlands and understanding their needs and how DMPs should involve, but also facilitating administration and data stewards. So he will share his insights after the presentation. So let me start by first finding the correct slideshow. Yes, I think you can see it, right?
Yes, we can see it, Elli.
Good, thanks. Okay, so recently it became, it came to our attention, let's say, that there are different needs from different institutions. And of course we knew that, but because we always aimed for the integrations and having everything together, I think we neglected also mentioning that Argos can be used as a traditional platform to create your DMPs, right? Like you would do 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So depends, of course, on most of the times on the funding that the organizations have, the priorities that they give in terms of service procurement and all that. So today we would like to distinguish these to make clear these two uses of Argos. One as a traditional form-based tool that you can create a template, fill it in, and then publish a PDF without having to worry about whether it is, machine actionable, for example, that is very trending at the moment. So just fulfilling, it just helps to fulfill any requirements of a fund or institution, and follow some best practices while doing that. But now, what we have been showing, it's the 27th community call that we are showing this, or referring to this, is that Argos can be also used to integrate different services of the life cycle and support automations and support teams to collaborate and exchange thoughts, but also metadata, and eventually being able to monitor all this and understand how the process of creating, managing, and publishing a DMP is simplified. Now I can see this screen. Okay. So what this means in practice, just as a disclaimer, a tool cannot solve all the issues, especially if we're talking about not a project where you have a team with specific, policies in terms of what data they will collect, etc. So there is a different purpose and a different life cycle, if you like, that they follow. But for an institution, if we want to understand what are the data assets that are used in the university, for example, or a research center, or a research infrastructure, what are the services, who are the people that are involved. So here you can see a checklist that will also make available after we pass the review from our executive board of OpenAir. And that means that, well, we need someone to take responsibility, someone that will be, let's say, the owner, the person that oversees what is happening with information and knowledge that is produced and shared in the institution. Then we need to understand, and we will link also, so here I haven't listed everything, but there are methodologies already that we can use to map the research data lifecycle in our institution with the different departments, the data assets, and so on, and understand the different data points, but also the flows between them. Identifying connect key systems, yes, for example, Argos or the DMP does not only talk about DMPs per se, but also have legal or ethical information that is needed for data to be shared and to justify why they cannot be shared or shared under permissions, specific permissions, etc. So there are different things apart from just planning your data lifecycle. Next is we need to know the different roles that these different teams and specific people will have in Argos so that we create the permissions for them, so that not all of us can go and be administrators and delete, for example, a comment or a description or anything, or a role that can be very restrictive to the specific expertise of the person we would like to address this section in our plan. For example, ethics. We need to design workflow triggers and permissions, like when I send the DMP, what happens, who gets access, and what is the permissions that these people have, and then after that, what is the trigger for the next action, and the permissions for these people change, and new people come with permissions and so on. And then enable a version control and change notifications. So you will be receiving notifications basically through this process. Oh, sorry. Oh, what did I do? Okay, and then the metadata that are acquired, because everything that you put inside the blueprint and the template is metadata at the end. If you check the if you check the JSON and also the XML, these are some metadata, maybe not structured, maybe not standards all the time, apart from the descriptive metadata that we share with Zenodo, for example, but there are metadata. So you can share specific parts of the DMP or of the plan that has many things inside it: data management, software management, ethics review, etc. You can share this metadata across the different systems that these departments have. And at the end, monitor and assess implementation. Of course, you can link everything to a monitor or tracking system that you already have and understand what you might, how you might want to better the processes in terms of implementation of the workflows. And now it doesn't go. Okay. So how these workflows might look like. Disclaimer, this is ChatGPT that did it, but it's an example and hopefully it's understandable. We see here that the DMP is initiated at a project start, for example, that the research support staff get notification and contribute to collaborate on writing it or reviewing it. There is some validation in terms of the content or any other specific criteria that we want to validate the DMP. For example, if the data sets described are fair, or if specific policies are followed by the institution. Department-specific sections are reviewed by people that we have appointed for that in our department. Argos workflows link outputs directly. So we link the data set with the DMP, with the project, with the ethics report, everything. Argos workflows link outputs directly again. So see, that's ChatGPT. And then output, publication, or deposit triggers metadata. That means that when we publish the plan is our output. When we publish the plan or deposit it, that exposes the metadata that are needed for the system we are depositing or publishing our plans to. Stakeholders across departments collaborate. Yes, that's obvious. And see, these are wrong. But this is how a workflow will look like. I don't know if you have any questions, or maybe I can invite Andrew to share his observations from the needs in the Dutch pilot we have in OSTrails and the thoughts behind using Argos to tackle them.
Sure. Can you see and hear me? Because I can't see anything but your screen. There.
Yes. Good.
Okay. Thanks for the overview, Ellie, and thanks for inviting me to talk about the Dutch national pilot on OSTrails. I know that I was introduced as talking about how Argos will be used in the Netherlands, but I'm in absolutely no position to say how Argos will be used in the Netherlands, let alone in my university as a whole, let alone in my faculty.
The pilot.
I work basically at the institute level. I work in two different institutes at Leiden. One is Cultural Anthropology and Development Sociology. One is the Center for Science and Technology Studies. That's within the Faculty of Social Sciences, which is within Leiden, which is one of two coordinating organizations on our Dutch national pilot. The other, who's actually really in the lead, is SURF, which is our sort of national one of our national infrastructure providers for research and education. Eileen Wagemakers is my co-coordinator. She unfortunately couldn't make it today. So that's a little bit of background, so you know where we're coming from. We have a sort of small consortium of 5 universities, including one sort of pan organization that crosses the universities of applied sciences in the Netherlands who are contributing. And I guess I can maybe even show you a slide so you have a sense of what's going on. Sorry, let me pull this up quickly. Am I able to share here? Should be.
Okay, yeah.
You can see that. So anyway, that's just to say, that's really strange. So the top right are the organizations that are contributing to this. Where to begin? So I know, Ellie, you mentioned integrated workflows. I think we actually use this term somewhat differently. You're thinking about sort of more technical integrations. And then, as you said earlier, there's also this idea that you can use Argos kind of like any old-fashioned DMP platform that need not even be machine actionable. So some of what we're looking at here in the Netherlands, I'm going to stop sharing because it's disconcerting not to know what I'm talking to. Some of what we're dealing with here in the Netherlands, and especially in my own faculty at Leiden, where we've done a lot of the earlier work, is to think about, what are the organizational factors that would contribute to the uptake of such a tool. Things at Leiden are probably a bit more decentralized than you find at other Dutch universities, and I think as we're learning through contributing to the broader OSTrails project, where there's other national pilots, there's different levels of centralization or decentralization, even at the national level. Some folks, I think, are developing a single template, data management plan template that will be used nationally, whereas in the Netherlands we generally have the NVO template, which is one sort of main national funder. They've sort of supported our work in OSTrails. And then each individual university has its own university-specific template that is sort of approved by the NVO. And the NVO's own template is mapped to the Science Europe DMP rubric. But as you will see in a second, because I'll share again, our DMP template at Leiden is quite a bit more extensive than the NVO's own template. And for those of you who are familiar with the European Commission template, also, we have, you know, a lot of questions. I think it's eight pages. And they sort of go from administrative details through to questions about data collection. How are you going to do this? Through to where are you going to store your data, and is it secure, and are there privacy implications? How are you going to document things, and what standards will you use to describe your data? Finally, through to sharing. How are you going to share? Where are you going to share? Do you get a DOI? And that continues into preservation as well. Again, I'll stop sharing if you don't mind. So there's lots of questions that I think don't necessarily immediately correspond to a lot of what is being worked on to make more machine actionable, especially when it comes to data sets. And as we also heard at the General Assembly meeting for OSTrails 2 weeks ago in Athens, you know, there's different ideas about what a data plan is even useful or should be used for or could be used for. Now, I work with researchers on a daily basis, and you know, there's a lot that goes into data management plans that may not be machine actionable and may not necessarily even, you know, the PI or the team may not want to publish it. So that's one question, is just about where to publish it. And how to publish it. Can you publish directly to Zenodo? Can it go through an institutional repository, sort of be published but under embargo, but in a way that still can mint a DOI, so the existence of the DMP is at least sort of visible, etc. And then from there, we get into these sort of more administrative workflows. And in the year that we've been engaging the national community, both our sort of immediate consortium partners, but also we've done workshops that reach, you know, every RPO in the Netherlands. We've heard a lot more about what we call integrated workflows, which is, again, sort of interest in bringing ethics and privacy and data management workflows into a single environment, and quite a bit less discourse around open research information and the kinds of things that the core of OSTrails is really focusing on. So again, coming from the perspective of working with researchers on the ground and thinking what is sort of organizationally needed, our thinking has really led to the need to explore a use case to do some of this more old-fashioned administrative stuff that, you know, we think, if it's taken up, can still generate and use a lot of what else is being incorporated into a tool like Argos, whether it be, you know, things relating to the tracking of these research outputs, or to, you know, embedding fair assessment and these kinds of things. But we do know that if tooling doesn't satisfy an immediate administrative need, regardless of how well-intentioned the sort of more open science and open research information ideas are embedded in the tool, it will be, I think, a somewhat hard sell. So I don't know if I'm saying anything I'm not supposed to say in public, but that's just the reality, and that's a reality
We'll
that we
cut it.
great. That's the reality that we didn't necessarily anticipate when we wrote the grant, you know, the application to do a national pilot. But again, we've learned a lot over that past while, and well, Elli and myself and Eileen have now been accepted to present about these sort of integrated workflows at Surf Research Day, which is in May. So we have, I think now, a bit more to do to actually map these things out. So yeah, there's not a ton of sort of substantive stuff to report on, except to say that these are the things that we're looking into, and it's really about understanding how a tool like Argos can actually be organizationally embedded, which has both technical, considerations, but also obviously considerations about
Mhm.
governance and, the social life around these kinds of tools.
Thanks, Andrew. There are questions in the chat. The one I think you implied from Simon Cox, is the NVO DMP template available as a blueprint in Argos? This we need to do for May. This to have ready a draft for May for the surf day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get a very structured overview of our project, but we have 6 deliverables, and so the first deliverable of our national pilot is actually to encode both the NVO template as well as a subset of the university templates. So, of the 4 of the organizations already have templates, and the DCCPO, which is the Digital Competence Center for Praktijkonderzoek, which covers all of the universities of applied sciences. They're still working on a template that they anticipate having a single DMP template for all universities of applied sciences in the Netherlands. So we've already started actually with the Leiden template encoding. We started before the most recent version of Argos was launched, which with the new version has made things a bit more easy, but also we had to sort of reorganize a few things. So we're on our way to doing this, and we even have a first European Commission funded project who has volunteered to be our first guinea pig as soon as we have that stuff in the system. So yeah.
Could I just ask, Andrew, how different do you think the kind of national templates for Netherlands are going to be compared to something like the Horizon Europe templates?
My understanding is, again, that the NVO template is mapped to the Science Europe rubric, and I believe that the Horizon one is also. My sense, anecdotally, from speaking to my fellow data stewards at other Dutch universities, is that a majority of researchers are using the university template and not the NVO template. Again, because there's a bunch of questions on the university templates that we tend to need to know for the university that, again, go a bit beyond the sort of fair data archiving type of stuff that is mostly the focus of the NVO template, which, again, I didn't show it, but those of you at home who are curious can pull it up. It's quite short. I think it's five clusters of questions instead of 8 pages of questions. So I don't know if that is a sufficient answer to your question, but yeah, I don't think the NVO and the Horizon is terribly different.
Yeah, I would expect not, especially at the national and European level. Maybe the institutional templates might be slightly different. I mean, we obviously have the same issue in Portugal, where we have our main national science funder has its own template, which is again different from the Horizon Europe template. Thankfully, at a university level, we don't have a template yet, so we don't have another thing to consider. But yeah, it will be nice to see some harmonization amongst this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If I can venture one last response, because the second deliverable in our project is actually to develop some discipline-specific guidance and or templates and or sort of extensions while I was at the General Assembly for OSTrails 2 weeks ago, I actually got an email from our Center for Digital Scholarship, which is sort of the central data, where the central data management stuff happens in our library. And they are actually now embarking in a process of revamping the university template, which I think is also good for us because we can think about where there's synergies, including where there's maybe a need for more discipline specificity in the data management plans. Because again, just me individually, I work in an anthropology department where it's mostly ethnographers, whose data is largely handwritten field notes still. I mean, not exclusively, but there's a lot of that. And then I also work in the Center for Science and Technology Studies, where you have a lot of like large scale scientometric research, right? Um, you you tend to need to ask questions in different ways to get useful information out of those very different communities. Um, I mean, it's funny working in data management in a place that does a lot of scientometric stuff, because the DMP is asking about metadata, and many of those researchers, they think they're talking like, when they read metadata, they're thinking about the data that they use in their scientometrics research, and so you get all sorts of crazy, responses, which are different than the crazy responses you get when you ask an anthropologist what metadata standards they're using. Everyone has their own crazy responses, but they're coming from two very different angles. So
Yeah.
I see the value of harmonization, but again, from my own weird positionality, I also see where there's often need to do it differently, even across the hall from one another.
Yeah, I can imagine that within different, research domains, I'm within life sciences, I can see some possibility for harmonization and some coordination within the life sciences at least. But yeah, it's going to be different to anthropology or whatever. Some other subject I know nothing about. Yeah. So going back to what I think you said earlier, that what you're doing in OSTrails is trying to, find some of these, find your way through some of these new paradigms and doing these like the science actions. Will that work in OSTrails be fed into the EOSC via Argos? And you're in this community, so I'm guessing you have some coordination with Argos.
Well, Argos is one tool. Our aim is to, and the different tools that support DMP creation have different features, have different scope behind them, have different communities even that they address them to. Our goal in OSTrails is to provide interoperability across these different tools, so that they can then become exchange information, let's say, with the EOS. So whether the tools themselves or Argos will be, for example, a service that is going to be part of or a component of the EOSKU node or the EOSK whatever node, that is not something that I can answer at the moment. We don't know.
Okay.
But we follow, at least Argos follows the EOSK standards. So hopefully it will be easier for us to comply once the Federation handbook is finalized.
Can I ask what's driving the question, Simon?
Good question.
Just that I think what you're doing in Holland is obviously is relevant to what we need to do in Portugal. So I was just wondering how eventually the work that you're doing is going to be disseminated and kind of integrated into the EOS.
We have, don't worry, because in Portugal we have another pilot, and I don't know if you were in this community call where Filipa Pereira from FCT presented this collaboration and her views of how the different projects they have connect, and how now in OSTrails we will have the standards to do it properly also.
Yeah, Philippa's one of the major people employed by the federated EOSC mandated body in Portugal.
Yeah.
I have met her a few times, but not for a long time now.
Good. Maybe then we can get you in contact with her so that I think they have also community meetings, so you can get involved.
Okay, I hadn't realized that something was going on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're interested, of course. I muted myself. There's also another question from Mauro Paschetta. Very interested in the form presented by Andrew. Is it available somewhere? I guess the PDF version, right?
Actually, so I'll post the link in the chat. I wasn't looking at the chat. I'm sorry. Our Leiden template is available on Zenodo, and all previous versions, in case you're curious how it's changed over time. And we have a lot of other sort of general research data management documentation on Zenodo as well. We try and publish that stuff as openly as we can. So give me a second. Were there other questions while I'm looking at a different screen?
I don't know if Marilee has because I'm checking the chat, not the document.
No, in the document, all the questions are copied from the chat. So sorry, we have one question from Teresa. The ability to design workflows in Argos looks great. Would Argos be able to provide an option to administrate information that has different security classes and includes information that cannot be open? Can one have different administrators for it? Well, actually, there are many questions. Would you like to answer it one by one, or shall I continue reading?
Maybe Teresa can also, speak up. But Andrew, finish first if you found it, please.
Yeah, I'm posting now. So I was only half listening, but that question wasn't immediately for me, was it? Or was it?
No.
No.
Okay.
So, Elli, do you want me to continue with the questions? Shall we take it one by one?
I need to I need to check them. If Teresa doesn't want to let me check them.
I can add it in the chat if you want.
Okay, I found it. The ability to design okay. Would Argos be able to provide an option to administrate information that has different security classes and includes information that cannot be open? Can you please give an example? Would that mean to you that you have two people in a department that you want to have different roles and permissions in Argos?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about, let's say, different people who are involved in research support in an organization, a university or another research organization, who have different responsibilities. We have persons who are responsible for IT security. We have lawyers that have their views about GDPRs, and then we have the researchers who don't want to do redundant work, and who not only have, at least here in Sweden where we live, not only have to write data management plans, they also have to make risk assessments, they have to define the security clauses of their research data and those sorts of things. And this is information that can't be open. But a data management plan is supposed to be open. And if you want to be able to share a data management plan, we cannot include this kind of information. I think if it comes to the details, what can be present in a data management plan, there are sometimes very different views. We have people who have sleepless nights, because they are afraid that researchers write too many details about how they store their data and those sorts of things. And if we see on data management plans from a fair data perspective, there is information that is important for researchers within an organization. All the internal routines of data management plans, they are locally important, but they are not important for people who are interested, let's say, in fair data, who are looking for data that would be interested for future research, for that they could reuse in future projects. They don't need to know these details. What they need to know is what kind of data are there, in which form is this data available, what is the process to get access to this data, are they open, or do we have to send in a request, and those sorts of things. So it could help if there would be an opportunity, let's say, to have some information that is closed and that is only internally accessible for people who are authorized within an organization, and information that we can say, okay, this is for the world, we can share that, there's no concern about it, everybody can read that. So sorry if I was now unclear in my question, and this might be a question that is not relevant to people in other countries, but it is very relevant here. We have the wonderful work by Thomas Mixter and co-authors about the 10 rules for mesh and actional data management plans, and they describe how all these stakeholders talk to each other and come together and agree on how to exchange information. But if the stakeholders don't agree, the entire system is never going to work. So that is a bit the background.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
I know Andrew had the same question 2 days ago, right? It was 2 days ago. So Andrew, I give the floor first to you.
I mean, you can also answer first if you want, Elli.
No, that was good.
Yeah, 2 days ago and 2 months ago, and I think 2 years ago, basically since the beginning. And that was actually my first point, I think, today, which I probably was not very clear because I'm a bit scattered today. But for us, the first question when we think about this bigger sort of blue skies, open science way of thinking about DMPs is like, can they be published? And if so, where? And if so, what? So I was basically addressing or asking the same question that I think you've asked now, Teresa. And in the context of OSTrails, I've sort of been on a soapbox for a while about thinking about like a sort of minimal publishable metadata set of information. Again, if not directly from the DMP, then about the DMP, or what might fall in the sort of uppermost section of the DMP that is generally going to be available in some way or another anyway. But again, at least you know that there is a DMP that could possibly have a DOI that could possibly still be associated with all these other outputs while still keeping, again, parts of the DMP under embargo, or possibly the whole DMP, depending. But yeah, again, in my experiences working with researchers, there is a lot of conversation that does get documented there that is mostly about setting shared expectations amongst the research team. And again, maybe that's what you were gesturing at about if the stakeholders don't agree, then there's no data to share. I think that goes all the way down to, does the PI's vision of how data is going to be managed match the PhD students' data about how PhD students' understanding about how the data is going to be managed? And that's not always a given either, right? So can we use the DMP from the first moment to start sharing everyone's perspective and ensuring that what's written there is something that everybody sort of understands and sees themselves in, and if not, then there's conversations that need to be had, and that's just that first level of understanding. I guess it only gets more complicated from there.
Yeah, but to answer in a technical, at the technical level, at the moment in Argos, you can create a role. So if the role is, I don't know, privacy officer, you can set permissions. And I think, yeah, we're developing the tutorials on this, so they will be available on OpenPlato. We'll let you know when that is done. But you can set the role of the privacy officer and what permissions to have. Permissions to be the only person to review a specific section on the blueprint, because the blueprint has the flexibility to include, to sketch different activities that you want to collaborate on, not only about data management. They may be related to data management, like you will need at some point to go to the ethics committee and have a report and attach this to the DMP maybe, but you can also allow at the level of a specific section of the blueprint, specific people to have access, and at the end, when publishing this, you can check or either check or uncheck, I don't remember now, if you want this to be publicly available and deposited or not. So you will be able to deposit maybe only the blueprint section about data management, which will be your DMP output. You will be able to select also the ethics, maybe. So it will be the DMP plus extra supplementary material with the ethics report. It might be software management plan also. It might be many things that you can choose what to export and make available at the end. Does that cover?
Yes, thank you so much.
Case?
So there would be an option to make a choice which parts of data management plan can be exported and be public, or let's say, yeah, exported, and which parts stay, yeah, within Argos.
Yes.
And just are accessible there.
To whoever has access, yes.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Yeah, I didn't know that, and that sounds great because that might possibly resolve some problems that we have discussed locally. Well, thank you.
But
yeah,
yes, Andrew first.
No, if Teresa has more to say.
No, please, thank you. Please.
I guess this is somewhere between a question and a statement, but again, when we're thinking about sort of the mental model or even the technological schema that we see a lot of within OSTrails land, there is this assumption that there's a space in the DMP or a question on the DMP that's like, what are your data sets, right? And then you can populate that with a DOI and that can generate certain kinds of connections. Our DMP template doesn't really ask a question in that way. And now we can debate whether it should or could, but the reality right now is that it doesn't. And that, again, that's sort of within a hierarchy of permissions where the NVO signs off on what the university proposes as their version of the data management plan. And then the university has, again, its own things that it wants to know on the DMP. So what we are looking into that we briefly presented about at the General Assembly a couple of weeks ago is how we can maybe also use RAIDs, so research activity identifiers, in tandem with MADMPs. And I think this is maybe where that sort of use case would fit in. So on the DMP, if in our case right now, for example, there is no question about where your data sets, can you still sort of link from the DMP, which may have its own, again, DOI, out to a RAID that has, a bunch of other information about the project, also including data sets. So it's sort of an extension of the DMP, but not the DMP itself. And that's where the data sets on the project can actually be made linkable. We're still in the process of sort of sorting out what this will or could look like. And Eileen, my colleague, is much more of an expert. So if I'm saying anything crazy, that's all my fault and none of hers. But yeah, again, it's sort of like, given certain kinds of institutional constraints, what else can we leverage to still play the interoperability game and ensure that all of the outputs on a given project are visible and are linked in the most sensible way, but that may not always sort of use the full functionality of the tooling in the way that others might be.
Yeah, and that's okay, because every use case is different.
Thank you for your permissions.
I think Teresa had another question. Let me see.
Thank you. I think these are different parts of the same question. And I understand now that my question might not be relevant for people in other countries. Yeah, we have in the European Union 27 countries, and different legislation within the countries. In Sweden, our situation is special in this way because most higher education institutions are authorities and have therefore different legal requirements than universities and higher education institutions in other European countries. But I'll be happy to detail, to write these things down and to share them with you. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Is there an example of what these requirements are?
Yes, there are examples. For instance, one example is the legal duty of a university to archive research data. Yeah. Like all other research documents, because we have something in Sweden that is called public document or official document, different English terms. But the principal idea is that everybody in Sweden has the right to demand access of the documents of an authority for a specified purpose, unless access to these documents is restricted by law. So if something is classed secret, confidential, for whatever reasons, I think there is a long list of reasons why information can't be shared, then this information will not be handed out. But otherwise, authorities must follow this law and hand out these documents. So an easy example is, a PI has visitors who gave presentations at a conference, and they go to a restaurant and have a dinner, and the journalist wants to see the restaurant bill. So the university must provide the restaurant bill. But that same principle applies also to research data. And we have had cases where journalists, citizens demanded access to research data for some reasons. For instance, one example was research about health damage of cell phones. Yeah. And those sorts of things. So I think there were trials about these cases, and I'm not going to go into those details. So in most cases, people are not interested in research data, but in some cases they are. And as research data are public documents, there is, for instance, the duty to archive them. There are other legal requirements that link to information security. Because all research data have to be integrated into the information security work of an authority. So if I go into details, it will become a bit complex, but we have to deal with this situation. We have to find solutions for it, and the solutions that may work excellently in other countries of the European Union cannot be completely transferred to the Swedish context. And added to this, there comes, as I explained, we have people who are more or less concerned about certain things. And in the time in which we live, security questions have a very high priority. So that adds to the background and the overarching context. I'm not going to go into details here either. So I would very much love to know how you resolve these problems in the Netherlands and how you make people come together and to work together synergistically, that we say, wow, no, we all want to create fair data and promote future research. How do you do that? Making people talk to each other and coming to reach a consensus is not quite easy, isn't it?
No, it's not. And I know Elli wants the last word, or rather the Argos folks. But I mean, for us, the short answer is we also don't have the solution. And again, it differs from one institution to the next, and possibly even from one faculty to the next. And sometimes it's a matter of who's in what kind of mood on whichever day you ask them the question. So yeah, it's a very hard problem with no quick and easy answers. And by no means am I speaking on behalf of the Netherlands as a whole, but in my personal experiences, I've yet to see a place where that issue has been solved.
Yeah.
So,
but also the legal restrictions that you mentioned. Some countries are behind, for example, transposing some of the EU guidelines into their legal frameworks. So the Data Act might be different to you than to others. There may be national, extra national policies that present, these hurdles, but at least a minimum level of acceptance we should be able to find. So if we can we follow up, Teresa, because I know that our legal expert already contacted you, but if we could, check what are it's not a problem, but what are the limitations, I would say, is a softer word.
I I will be happy to get back to you to write. May I please do that?
Yeah. Oh, no, let's do this exercise together. Let's
Mm.
meet and do this exercise together so that we see what we can do.
Yes.
And then present it here. And Simon and Andrew will have something to share. Okay. I think we're on time and I have to go to another meeting. Thank you very much, especially Andrew for the short notice.
Yeah, sorry if I was scattered. It was short notice, and
It was short notice, but I really thought that this was a great opportunity to share this with everyone. Okay, Simon, Teresa, I follow up with you as well, and for the rest who are silent, hopefully we hear you next time, and have a good evening.
thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.
Bye, thank you.